Where Lions Roar at Night by Rosie Boom. Chapter 1, Groans in the Night. 10-year-old Millie shivered with excitement and wriggled further into her sleeping bag. The mosquito net looked like a white cloud above her. She could hear the whine of a mosquito outside and felt glad it couldn't reach her. She looked across the floor of the loft and saw all the other mattresses in a row, their mosquito nets glowing white in a shaft of moonlight. It looked like a war camp. "Sam," she whispered, "are you awake?" No answer. "Jake?" Still no answer. "Ellie?" Nothing. Millie groaned. There was no use trying the two teenagers. Kate and Josiah would be asleep for sure. Good grief, she thought. How could they fall asleep on such an exciting night? "Try to go to sleep, Millie," said Mum in a soft voice. "We've got a big day tomorrow." Millie lay still and listened to the sounds of the night. The old barn creaked in the slight wind, and outside she could hear the occasional call of a moorpork. Imagine it, living in the barn, finally. It was 6 months since the first day Mum and Dad had brought all the family to see the land. Auntie Penny had come with them, and she and Mum had stood inside the 90-year-old barn, staring up at the sparrows perched on the high rafters. They'd scrambled up a wooden ladder that was nailed to the wall and poked their heads into the loft. Then Auntie Penny had looked at Mum and said, "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" And Mum's eyes were shining with excitement as she'd replied, "You bet I am. We could live here while we build the house." Millie grinned as she thought of her Mum and Auntie Penny. They were the spitting image of each other, like peas in a pod. Auntie Penny and Uncle Dave lived just 5 minutes up the road in a milking shed they'd made into their home. Their brother, Uncle Peter, lived in a house truck, and now the Booms were living in a barn. But Mum said it was all part of having been brought up in New Guinea. They thrived on adventure and a challenge. Millie wriggled around in bed and gazed up at the top of her net, where the mosquitoes still buzzed, trying to get in. Their first exploration of the land had been so exciting. She and Sam, Jake, Ellie, Kate and Josiah had run over every square inch, exploring all the paddocks and especially the river that wound around the edge of the land. They'd climbed over the huge totra logs that lay across the river, with Angel and Lucy, their rough-haired Jack Russells, close behind. "Look at them," Mum had said to Dad. "I just had a vision of Penny and Peter and me walking across a log in New Guinea." Millie had felt she would die from excitement. She'd run up to Dad, grabbed his arm, shook it and pleaded, "Please, Daddy, buy it now, buy it today, please." And everyone had clapped and cheered when Dad had said, "Well, we can't buy it today, but I hope we can soon." Soon had seemed like forever to Millie, but finally the day had come when Dad announced, "The land is ours." They could move in. Mum and Auntie Penny got stuck in with a water blaster and washed out all the dirt and mud, piles of it. Then while Dad had set up the composting toilet, the kids and Mum had cleared out all the wood and rubbish in the loft. And the possum. Millie giggled to herself, remembering how Mum had freaked out when the possum had jumped out of a pile of boxes in the loft. Angel and Lucy had gone crazy, chasing it and barking in high, frenzied voices. Complete pandemonium had followed. The possum had screeched back at the dogs, everyone was shouting, and Mum had run out of the barn covering her ears. Finally, the possum had managed to escape the loft and climb onto one of the rafters in the main room, above all their furniture and packing boxes. "Bother," Dad had said. "If it hides amongst the boxes, we'll never find it. If only I had a gun. Millie, can you bike down to Lee's and ask if he'll come and shoot it?" Lee was their neighbour, the man who had sold them the land. "The only possum is a dead one," Lee had told her as they went back to the barn. "They destroy our native trees and raid the birds' nests and eat their eggs and little fledglings." Millie shuddered as she remembered how loud the gunshot had sounded in the barn. It had been a good shot. The possum had fallen from the rafter onto the double mattress and then onto the floor. 8-year-old Sam had dragged it outside by the tail. He was quite brave sometimes. A small scratching sound broke her out of her thoughts. "Chris," said Mum in a little voice. "Chris, wake up." Millie heard Dad move and then his sleepy voice. "What is it?" "I heard something over there. I couldn't bear it if it's a rat." Mum sounded desperate. Dad gave a little laugh. "Don't worry, it's not going to hurt you." "Don't be so flippant," hissed Mum. "You know how much I hate rats." Millie heard Dad laugh again. She could just imagine him grinning in the dark. "All right, Rose, change places. I'll sleep next to the wall." There were sounds of shuffling as they swapped places, and then Mum called, "Angel, here girl, Angel." "She's on my bed," whispered Millie. "May I have her here with me, please?" asked Mum. Millie giggled and opened her net. "Go on, Angel, Mum needs you." Just then the water pump in the room below began to thump loudly and the barn walls shook. Millie tucked her net back in and smiled when she heard Mum whisper to Dad, "It's going to be a long night." "Good," thought Millie. "At least someone else will be awake with me." She closed her eyes and pictured the hens she would get, the pony, the lamb. Who knows? She might even be able to have her own cow and milk her. Dad had been breathing slow and deep for a while when Millie heard a long, low sound that made her hair prickle. She lay very still, listening. The wind had dropped and everything seemed quiet. Even the barn seemed to have gone to sleep. Then she heard it again, a deep groan that seemed to go on forever. Millie's mouth went dry. "Mum, are you awake?" "Yes." "Did you hear that?" "No. Was it a rat?" "No," said Millie. "It was an awful sound, like someone dying. Listen." There it was again, a far-off moaning. "Chris," said Mum, "wake up." Dad stirred and then groaned. "What now?" "Listen," said Mum. They all lay still. At last it came again, and Millie felt her toes tingle. She wriggled out of her sleeping bag and edged her way between the mattresses and sleeping bodies of the other kids to where Mum and Dad lay on the floor. She climbed under their net and wriggled between them. "What is it, Dad?" "Shh," he said. "I want to hear it again." When the moan reached them this time, Millie didn't feel quite so afraid. Then she heard Dad begin to chuckle. "Can you believe it, Rose? Lions! It's lions roaring." "What?" said Mum. "Don't be ridiculous. There are no lions in New Zealand. Stop trying to frighten me." "Not wild lions," laughed Dad. "It's the lions in the lion park, not far from here. There must be a northerly wind blowing, and they must be hungry." Millie shivered with delight. Lions! Imagine if one got free. Now that would be an adventure. She lay very still, listening to the frightful sound for a long time. She felt better when Dad told her they were locked behind strong, high fences. But she was happy to sleep between Mum and Dad for the first night in the barn, all the same.